Welcome back here for the Common Game. Today, in deck number 855, we will talk about Rim Karolus, Stalwart Slayer. It's a different kind of Boros deck. It's red-white, flying haste, 2-3. If a spell would deal damage to you or another permanent you control, prevent that damage. That's a big thing. If a spell would deal damage to an opponent or a permanent an opponent controls, it deals that much damage +1. So really, really different kind of it's not the typical Boros attacky deck. It is let's damage all the things. And with that in mind, let's look at these first two cards since they don't really have a category here. Double Vision. You cast your first instant sorcery, you get to copy it. This will probably... Now, the double and triple damage enchantments are awesome. They would be in here if I had them. This may be one of those slots. But I also like the Mirari to just copy those spells. But before we get into the good stuff, let's look at our mana, shall we? Because this is Boros. We don't typically have a whole lot of ramps, so I went a little heavier on the rocks. So, here we go. Seer's Lantern, Boros Locket, Pristine Talisman, Burnished Heart, it goes and gets you 2 lands, Dreamstone Hedron, Mana Now, maybe cards later, Cultivator Caravan is just a mana rock that you can swing with if you need to, Commander Sphere, let's stop this autofocus trying to mess us up, Explorer Scope is a different one. I'm classifying that here because we're probably going to be attacking. The Sisay's Ring, Everflowing Chalice, Boros Signet, Boros Cluestone, Soul Ring, Letter of Acceptance, and then a couple spells, the Mana Geyser and the Environmental Sciences because, it's really good in non-green decks. And then there's one here that doesn't ramp us, but Sunglasses of Urza does kind of, white mana can be used as either white or red, so that's not bad. Let's look at our creature suite before we get into the other stuff here. Now, there is a lot of red, so Torbrand makes an appearance, given the +2. Radiant Scroll Wielder is insane in this deck. Now, instant sorcery spells you control have lifelink. Now think Blasphemous Act. Last time you cast Blasphemous Act, how much damage it dealt, you don't really count it most of the time because it just about kills everything, and you're like, well, that's a Blasphemous Act to board wipe. But if you start counting up 13 damage to each creature, and if this thing has lifelink, that's kind of crazy. Of course, Gutter Snipe, we are casting a lot of instants and sorceries. And Gutter Snipe works well with Torbrand, which works well with Fire Servant. It's all Fire Song and Sunspeaker, Red instant sorceries. Now they have lifelink. Too bad lifelink does not stack, right? We have an Ember Maw Hellion to give another +1. Tajik. Prevent all non-combat damage that will be dealt to other creatures you control. So, Tajik and our commander at the same time, that's what we're looking for each one to protect the other one. That way they can both live through the Blasphemous Act. Chandra's Spitfire. Whenever an opponent's dealt this thing can get silly big. Sun Titan, it helps bring a lot of stuff back. Y'all know I love the interaction with Sun Titan and Burnished Heart. But even you've also got like the Commander Sphere to keep drawing a card or whatever. Maybe you're bringing back Yadrak. Chandra's Incinerator finds home here. Cost X less to cast, where X is the amount of non-combat damage dealt to your opponents. So if you deal 2 to your opponents, yeah, they all took 2, so that's 2, 4, 6, or more if you're playing a big game. Got some random stuff here. A little card filtering and Wild Guess and Faithless Looting. So Swiftfoot Boots, of course, keep the commander safe. And let's look at risk factor. Now, I know Risk Factor is a different Browbeat. Browbeat is a totally different animal. Uh, Browbeat's not that good in Commander. I've run it in a couple decks, but they're niche decks, you know. Risk Factor, you get to pick the player. So you get to pick the player who either one is going to take 4, 5, 10, who knows how much when you draw it of all of the pluses and multipliers that we have. But you get to pick the player who is in the most position to say yes. You know, I know cards that let your opponents make choices are not exactly optimal, but this kind of fit the theme, you know? So, my damage spells I have in two categories. Damage the thing or damage all the things. So, target. You know, stuff like Char. This was original Ravnica. It was amazing back in Standard back then, but Char don't see a whole lot of play now because it's 4 to a target and 2 to you. Well, now it's 5 to a target and 0 to us. It's pretty good for a 3-mana instant. Lantern Flare. Gonna try this one out. It's new. You know, X damage to a creature or walker, and you gain X life. X is the number of creatures you control, and you can cast it or you can cleave it. Just good old-fashioned lightning bolt. Because, I mean, it's rarely ever going to do 3, right? Rekindle Flame I like. Just it's 4 damage for 4 mana. No big deal. But if at the beginning of your upkeep, if an opponent has no cards in hand, you get to bring it back to your hand. That happens a lot. And especially in a format where we have multiple opponents. Of course, just Magma Spray, Lightning Helix, and Fireball's kind of it's mostly used for one target, but it can be used for multiple targets. So let's look at that. Leads us into our damage all the things. You know, Tremor, Pyroclasm, Volcanic Fallout I really like because it hits creatures and players. Solar Blaze. Each creature deals damage to itself equal to its power. Well, ours won't. Jaya's Immolating Inferno. I'm pretty sure 3 things are getting dead. Just Chain Reaction. That's another good one. Bright Flame. I really liked that Radiance ability. It was only present in like the original Ravnica block on Boros cards. But to do a thing, and then each other creature that shares a color with it, that's alright. Magma Quake. Deafening Clarion. 3 damage to each creature, or your team gains a lifelink. Mizzium Mortars is either or. Kessig Flame Breather. Cast a non-creature spell. Each opponent takes 1. It's deal damage, so they're going to take 2. And probably more, to factor in all the other pluses. But let's look at Acidic Soil. Now, if we have our commander out, we're not going to take any damage. But that green player is going to hurt. I know, because I'm that green player most of the time. Hour of Devastation. I like that first line. All creatures lose indestructible. That's why I don't have a means to, But, love it. And then 5 damage to everything. And then Wildfire was a late include, I'll be honest with you. Wildfire, I looked at how many mana rocks that we had, and I thought, you know what? And I almost turned this into a, like, Wildfire, the 5-1, the Boom and Bust, just a good old-fashioned red-white Geddon deck. But the problem is, I don't mind blowing up all lands. I don't. But I think when you do it, you should win. I really do. I don't think you should blow up the lands just to make the game last an extra hour. We all got time. The time, respecting folks' time investment is a big thing on my part. And if I can blow up all lands and win, I'm going to do it. If you can't, then there's no point. Now, we do have some other targeted removal stuff that's not damage. You know, like Rip Apart is a great card. Disenchant, Red Elemental Blast, and I threw in a Lapse of Certainty, mainly because people just don't see it coming. They don't. Nobody thinks the Boros deck is going to have a counterspell. Most of the time they don't, right? But our non-basic lands, the Hall of Oracles, seem to fit. Activate as a sorcery only if you've cast an instant sorcery spell this turn. So, yeah, it. But you can totally get something huge. Rogue's Passage to make sure that probably that Sun Titan keeps hitting. The Command Tower, Boros Guildgate, Boros Garrison. Sunholm is not bad too, double strike. Temple of Triumph, Terramorphic Expanse, Forgotten Cave, a little cycling action. Stone Quarry, Evolving Wilds, Needle Spires, Lorehold Campus, Windscarred Crag, Secluded Steppe, and lastly, a Slayer's Stronghold. Because, you know, we can. +2 Vigilance Haste. Kind of not bad. So that is Rim Careless. Haven't had a chance to play this one yet. Probably will soon, though. I did not get a chance to play this past week. I had to sit out because our house was under quarantine. As it turned out, it was no need, but, you know, it's always better safe than sorry. Anyway, 855 is going onto the wall. That one is done. I do appreciate y'all watching, liking, subscribing, all that stuff. But, that's what I've got for today. Yeah, I don't really have anything. We're going to go ahead and shuffle and cut.